welcome back. I'm Cole Phillips, author of The Adventure of the Twisted Truths and host of the Book and Dagger. And today we're going to be continuing our read along of J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit. Now, basically, the dwarves are trapped in this tunnel after Smaug flew out in blind rage, just started smashing the side of the mountain. And so we're going to pick up with chapter 13, Not at Home. So the dwarves are sitting in darkness with utter silence about them, and they ate little and they spoke little, and they could not count the passing of time, and they scarcely dared to move, for the whisper of their voices echoed and rustled in the tunnel. If they dozed, they woke still to darkness and to silence going on unbroken. At last, after days and days of waiting, as it seemed, when they were becoming choked and dazed for want of air, they could bear it no longer. So they tried a door, and because Thorin says he could rather feel the wind on his face soon or die, or he must feel the wind on his face soon or die. I think it would rather be smashed by Smaug in the open than suffocate in here. So the dwarves then proceed to try to open the door, but it doesn't work, and neither the key nor the magic it had once obeyed would never open that door again. So the dwarves and Bilbo all begin to creep down the tunnel again, with Bilbo going ahead just got the way, obviously. And so Bilbo is creeping ahead, and they find no Smaug, because apparently he did not come back after his flying rage. So Bilbo is creeping along, and there's no light or anything because the glow that once lit it because the dragon is not there. So Bilbo is creeping through the dark, not able to see anything, and he's not sure if Smaug is hiding there waiting. So he eventually shouts, "Light! Can anybody make a light?" Dwarves, of course, were very alarmed at this, and they all rush forward, and they try to go, "Shh!" But Bilbo continues to shout, "Light!" So Oin and Gloin were sent back to get their bundles at the top of the tunnel to make some light. After a while, a twinkling gleam showed them returning, Oin with a small pine torch alight in his hand, and Gloin with a bundle of others under his arm. Quickly, Bilbo trotted to the door and took the torch, but he could not persuade the dwarves to light the others or to come and join him yet. As Thorin carefully explained, Mr. Baggins was still officially their expert burglar and investigator. If he liked to risk a light, that was his affair. They would wait in the tunnel for his report, so they sat next to the door and waited. So Bilbo is stumbling through the treasure, and as he's climbing over mountains of gold, he sees a small light, and he begins going closer and closer to it, and he halts and stoops next to it, and it is the Arkenstone, the heart of the mountain. So Bilbo guessed from Thorin's descriptions, but indeed there could not be two such gems, even in so marvelous a hoard, even in all the world. Even as he climbed, the same white gleam had shone before him and drawn his feet toward it. Slowly it grew to a little globe of pallid light. Now, as he came near, it was tinged with a flickering sparkle of many colors at the surface, reflected and splintered from the wavering light of his torch. At last he looked down upon it, and he caught his breath. The great jewel shone before his feet of its own inner light, and yet cut and fashioned by the dwarves who had dug it from the heart of the mountain long ago. It took all light that fell upon it and changed it into 10,000 sparks of white radiance shot with glints of the rainbow. Bilbo picks it up and puts it in his pocket and says, "Now I'm a burglar indeed. But I suppose I must tell the dwarves about it sometime. They did say I could pick and choose my own share, and I think I would choose this, even if they took all the rest." At the same time, he had an uncomfortable feeling that the picking and choosing had not really been meant to include this marvelous gem, and that trouble would come of it. Anyway, so eventually the dwarves all work up their courage, and they all come out, and they light their torches, and they look around at the great treasure, and they're amazed. The mere fleeting glimpse of treasure which they had caught as they went along had rekindled all the fire of their dwarvish hearts. When the heart of a dwarf, even the most respectable, is wakened by gold and by jewels, he grows suddenly bold, and he may become fierce. The dwarves, indeed, no longer needed any urging. All were now eager to explore the hall while they had the chance, and willing to believe that for the present Smaug was away from home. Each now gripped a lighted torch, and as they gazed first on one side and then another, they forgot fear and even caution. They spoke aloud and cried out to one another, and they lifted old treasures from the mound or from the wall and held them in the light, caressing and fingering them. Fili and Kili were almost in merry mood, and finding still hanging their many golden harps strung with silver, they took them and struck them, and being magical, and also untouched by the dragon, who had small interest in music, they were still in tune. So they begin to fill the hall with music while the dwarves are scrambling around looking for gold, or looking amongst the piles of gold. And now the dwarves are taking down mail and weapons from the wall and arming themselves. Royal indeed did Thorin look, clad in a coat of gold-plated rings, with a silver-hafted axe, and a belt encrusted with scarlet stones. "Mr. Baggins," he cried, "here is the first payment of your reward. Cast off your old coat and put on this." With that he put on Bilbo a small coat of mail, wrought for some young elf prince long ago. It was of silver steel, which the elves called mithril, and with it went a belt of pearls and crystals. a light helm of figured leather, strengthened beneath with hoops of steel, and studded about the brim with white gems, was set upon the hobbit's head. I feel magnificent, he thought, but I expect I look rather absurd. How they would laugh on the hill at home. Still, I wish there was a looking-glass handy. At the same time, Mr. Baggins kept his head more clear of the bewitchment of the hoard than the dwarves did. Long before the dwarves became tired of examining the treasures, he became weary of it and sat down on the floor. I would give a good many of these precious goblets, he thought, for a drink of something cheering out of one of Beorn's wooden bowls. Anyway, so he calls out to Thorin and he says, "What next? We are armed, but what good has any armor ever been before against Smaug the Dreadful? This treasure is not yet won back. We are not looking for gold yet before a way of escape, and we have tempted luck too long." Thorin says, "You speak the truth. Let us go. I will guide you. Not in 1,000 years should I forget the ways of this palace." So all the dwarves begin to explore the palace. They go through all the old halls. They go to the great chamber of Thror, where there used to be feasting and council. They go to the front gate. They go to the place where the running river is birthed and goes out through the gate and to the lake. And they climb up to the old watchtowers. And so basically they have a meal, and basically they're exploring the mountain. Thorin's having a grand old time because this was the palace of his father and his fathers before them. And Thorin says, "Wait till you see it when it's clean and redecorated." But Bilbo is still glum because he says, "Well, we don't know where the dragon is. He could be out, just looking. He could be flying around seeing us as we explore the mountain." So the dwarves just they start clearing out through the paths and setting up like they basically just are assuming the dragon's dead right now. So they're just cleaning up like it's theirs, but they're still kind of worried. They don't know where it is. So they lay down their bundles and throw themselves down at once and slept. Well, some of them do. The others sat near the outer door and discussed their plans. In all their talk, they came perpetually back to one thing: where was Smaug? They looked west, and there was nothing, and east there was nothing. In the south there was no sign of the dragon, but there was a gathering of very many birds. At that they gazed and wondered, but they were no nearer understanding it when the first gold stars came out. And that is the end of chapter 13. Next time, we will find out where Smaug is in chapter 14, Fire and Water.